Hi, I'm Alan Mangum, owner of Timbersled Products. I'm going to show you our new Mtn Tamer back suspension system and how it works and compares to the stock suspension. So when you're through with this video, you will be more educated on how a suspension should work and react to the rough terrain of the mountains. First, let me show you how the stock suspension works and its ride characters. Also, keep in mind that all OEM suspensions, no matter what the brand, function the same as this one. Here we have a 2007 Polaris RMK 700 Dragon. This sled, in my opinion, is a good riding and handling sled. However, it could be better. Let me show you 3 bad things about the suspension that rob track speed and take your traction away. First, I want you to notice the amount of sag that this suspension has with no spring or shock resistance at all. As you can see, this sled has about 3 inches of sag. We call this wasted suspension travel. It does nothing and is a hindrance to your sled in the deep snow because it takes the ride height away from the rear. The second thing is weight transfer. When you go up a hill, all the weight transfers to the back, and the power of the engine pulls the back portion of the suspension up and drives the front portion of the suspension down. And that is why your sled wheelies and you have to lean over the handlebars to maintain speed control. Now I can think of better things I'd rather do on my snowmobile than trying to climb up over the handlebars while climbing a big chute with trees on it. Third thing is trenching. When you climb to the point where you have to turn out or you're in a tight spot and your sled's in a full wheelie and it's trenching down, well, that means you're out of control and you either get turned out or get stuck or something else bad might happen. Now I'm going to show you a test of why all this happens at such an extreme amount with the stock OEM suspension. As you can see, I've lifted the front end of this snowmobile up about a foot up off the ground, and the sled has even more sag with no spring or shock resistance. It has about 10 inches of sag, and when I push down on the back, the suspension becomes fully compressed in the rear and not at all in the front, and it lays the suspension flat out on the ground with the skis still off the ground. Now this suspension has no resistance in the back, no spring load, no shock. And this is why your sled wheelies and trenches and capitates in the snow. And what that means is your sled tries to motor itself up out of its own trench and back down and not up the hill. And it does this again and again until you lose all your hill speed. Here we have the suspension out of the snowmobile, and we're going to weigh it to compare it to the new suspension. As you can see, it weighs 53 pounds. This is the lightest OEM suspension that we've weighed yet. Okay. Here we have the suspension together, and now we'll weigh it. Also keep in mind that we removed 4 sets of bogie wheels on this suspension. Each bogie wheel weighs about 1 pound, so we removed a total of 4 pounds of wheels. The suspension weighs 38 pounds. That's a 15-pound weight loss. Not bad for an already lightweight snowmobile. Now I will show you the adjustment points of the suspension. In the front, the limiter strap has 6 hole adjustments, and the shock has 100 psi range of adjustment. And the back shock also has 100 psi range of adjustment. The rear arm slide mechanism is the most unique part about the suspension due to its simplistic design. It has 2 points of adjustment. First, you can adjust the sled's ride height by adding or removing shims to the top side of the slide mechanism. This works well for different snow conditions. The second point of adjustment is made by adding or removing shims to the bottom side of the slide mechanism. This controls the amount of ski lift that the sled will have under power. More shims means less ski lift, and less shims means more ski lift. Now that you know a little about the suspension, we will put it in the sled and do the same test that we did to the stock suspension and compare the difference. Notice the suspension bolts back into the stock bolt holes. You can see how clean and simple it looks. The suspension does not have a lot of parts for snow to build up on, and that makes the running weight of the snowmobile even lighter. Snow buildup adds up, and that is something most people don't even think about. Now, notice how quick and responsive the suspension is. It is soft but buoyant. Each time I push down on it, it quickly responds back to the top without any sag. That makes for a plush ride down the trail and up a bumpy hill. Now I have lifted the skis up off the ground like before, and as you can see, the suspension still does not have any sag. It is still soft but buoyant. This will help keep the skis down and the suspension working while climbing up a hill. I have lifted the back of the snowmobile up and put the jack under the back of the track and let all the air out of the shocks, so that I can show you in slow motion how the backslide mechanism works and how it will be a benefit to your snowmobile. As I jack the back of the suspension up, you can see the rear slide mechanism closing. This is like the rear scissor arm on the stock suspension. When the slide closes all the way, the front and back portion of the suspension become coupled together. And as you can see, in order for the back to go up any further, it has to pull the front portion of the suspension up with it. And the suspension then travels straight up and down in the chassis. This part of the suspension is adjustable by the rear slide mechanism. By adding or subtracting a shim, you can adjust how independent this portion of the suspension is. And it is these things that give your sled the ski control you need when you are on steep, rough ground. And every rider has a different way they like their sled to be set up. And the new Mtn Tamer rear suspension system will give you the adjustability you need to fit your riding style and the amount of horsepower that your sled has. Whether it has 100 horsepower or 300 horsepower, this suspension will work good. And remember, Timbersled products build parts that are lightweight and will give your sled better performance in the mountains.